Dear students, welcome to today's class of English for Specific Purposes. Today we're going to introduce the subject and we're going to try to define English for specific purposes. But in order to do that, we have to understand or go through the origins of ESP and the different developmental phases that it has gone through. So let's start now analyzing the three main reasons for the emergence of ESP. So the first one we're going to discuss is the demands of a new world. So the end of the Second World War had or brought about an enormous expansion in scientific, technical, and economical activity internationally. This expansion that was created was dominated by two main forces, technology and commerce. And these two forces generated a demand for an international language. During those times, and probably nowadays as well, the United States had the most economic power after the world, and so the English language was the one that got the role or the task to be this international language that they were needing at the time. So, as English became the accepted international language of technology and commerce, it created a new generation of learners who knew specifically why they were learning the language. There were businessmen and businesswomen who wanted to sell their products, mechanics who had to read instruction manuals, doctors who needed to keep up with the developments in their fields, and so many other people from specific disciplines needed English or needed to know English, and most importantly, they knew why they needed it. Also, these demands were accelerated by the oil crisis in the early 70s, where there were flow of funds of the oil to the oil-rich countries, meaning there were people who had to travel to countries in Latin America where oil is a currency. So, time and money constraints needed for cost-effective courses, which clearly defined the goals of these companies that were sending people to work to Latin American countries or other types of countries also. Now, at the same time as the demand was growing for English courses tailored for specific needs, influential new ideas began to emerge in the study of language. Traditionally, we know that the aim of linguistics had been to describe the rules of English usage, that is like grammar. However, the new studies shifted attention away from defining the formal features of language usage to discovering the ways in which language is actually used in real communication. So, in English language teaching, this gave rise to the view that there are important differences between, for example, the English of commerce and that or English for engineers, for example. These ideas married up naturally with the development of English courses for specific groups of learners. So the idea was very simple. If language varies from one situation of use to another, it should be possible to determine the features of specific situations and then make these features the basis of learners' courses. And the third reason for the emergence of ESP is related to educational psychology. Learners were seen to have different needs and interests, which would have an important influence on their motivation to learn and therefore on the effectiveness of their learning. This lends support to the development of courses in which relevance to the learner's needs and interests was paramount. The assumption underlying this approach, ESP, is that there is a clear relevance of the English course to the needs that would improve the learner's motivation and thereby make learning better and faster. So motivation is another important reason for the emergence of ESP. And then we have this quotation that is very related to what ESP stands for, that is, tell me what you need English for and I will tell you the English that you need. So I would like you to think about and analyze this quotation. Now, as we said before, in order to define ESP, we need to analyze first the reason for its emergence, and then we're going to analyze the development of ESP, the different phases that ESP has gone through. There are 5 main phases, but in different places or in different countries, the phases might vary. They are not at the same time. It's not that around the world ESP has developed at the same speed. So we're going to start with the first phase or the first part of ESP. That is when the main idea was register analysis, and there was a concept for special language. There was an idea, or they knew that there was something special about the language that would be taught in ESP. This first stage took place mainly in the 1960s and the early 1970s, and operated on the basic principle that the English of, for example, electrical engineer constituted a specific register different from, for example, biology or general English. So the aim of the analysis was to identify the grammatical and lexical features of these registers, the grammatical and lexical features. The aim of ESP during this phase was to produce a syllabus which gave high priority to the language forms students would meet in their science or in their discipline. And it gave very low priority to forms they wouldn't meet. So the main motive behind register analysis was the pedagogic one of making the ESP course more relevant to learners' needs. So in this first phase, ESP was not that different from general English, and it focused on grammatical and lexical features, but the idea, or they started to think about this concept that ESP should be taught differently. So that's why they started to produce or they started to analyze the fact that there are pedagogical differences between teaching general English and ESP. During this second phase, rhetorical or discourse analysis overtook the developments in the world of linguistics. So, as we know, in the first stage, ESP had focused on the language at the sentence level. In this second phase of development, the attention shifted to the level above the sentence. ESP became closely involved with the emerging field of discourse or rhetorical analysis. So in the previous phase, register analysis had focused on sentence grammar. But as we said before, now the attention was in understanding how sentences were combined in discourse to produce meaning. So the concern of research was to identify the organizational patterns in texts to specify the linguistic means by which these patterns are signaled. And these patterns would become then the syllabus of an ESP course. During the third stage, that is called target situation analysis, we come to consider, or the aim was to take the existing knowledge that they had of ESP and set it on a more scientific basis by establishing procedures for relating language analysis more closely to the learner's reasons for learning. So given that the purpose of an ESP course is to enable learners to function adequately in a target situation, the situation in which they will use the language they are learning, then the ESP course design process should proceed by first identifying the target situation they will be in, the students will be in, and then carrying out analysis for the linguistic features of that particular situation. This is called needs analysis, or also labeled as target situation analysis. So at this stage, we have a more mature, between inverted commas, ESP, because now we are analyzing or we have like a detailed profile of the learner's needs, but in terms of communication purposes, communicative settings, the means of communication, language skills, language functions, and language structures.